Okay, so strap in, everybody, because today we are going deep into human augmentation. We've got a whole pile of research papers and news articles, even some chapters from like a futurist book. It's all about how technology is going to like fundamentally change what it means to even be human.
Yeah, it's really incredible how fast this field is moving. What used to be just like sci-fi is now becoming like a reality.
Right, and it seems like the military is kind of leading the charge,
Mm-hmm.
always at the cutting edge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking exoskeletons that give soldiers super strength and AI-assisted vision.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen the prototypes for the U.S. Army's Telos exosuit?
I have.
It's supposed to like enhance strength and protection. It's like something straight out of a video game.
Yeah, the Talos project is a really good example of how this tech is being developed for the military. It uses hydraulics and sensors to make the wearer stronger and, give them more endurance. And it even has advanced armor plating for protection. Like the goal is to basically turn a soldier into a walking tank.
Wow, a walking tank.
But it does raise an interesting question. Are we changing the very nature of warfare with these enhancements? Or even like the definition of what a soldier is?
Yeah, that's a great point. And it makes you think about the implications not just for the battlefield, right? But in other areas too.
Right.
What about jobs that require like a lot of physical strength? Construction workers, firefighters, even surgeons.
Absolutely. And the applications go way beyond just the military. Cybernetic limbs are getting crazy sophisticated now. We're not just talking about like basic prosthetics anymore. These limbs have sensory feedback. They're controlled by the user's thoughts, and they have AI that adapts to their movements.
So they're almost like better than the real thing.
Yeah, in some ways they are. And that's not even the craziest part. Think about synthetic organs.
Okay.
We could potentially solve the problem of transplant shortages altogether.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where you can get a new heart or liver or kidney all grown in a lab.
Right.
That would revolutionize healthcare.
Completely. And not just in terms of replacing damaged organs. Imagine a cybernetic heart that's better than a biological one. It could, like, adjust to your activity level and self-regulate, maybe even last longer.
Wow.
It really blurs the line between what's natural and what's artificial.
Speaking of blurring lines,
Here.
have you been following the research on brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs?
Absolutely.
It's insane. It's like a direct link between your brain and a computer.
It is.
It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but it's actually happening now.
It's pretty remarkable. It has the potential to be so beneficial, especially for people with disabilities. BCIs could help people who are paralyzed control prosthetic limbs with their thoughts, or allow those who have lost their ability to speak to communicate using a computer.
That's amazing. It's incredible to think about the possibility, but it also kind of raises some big questions.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what happens when we start connecting our minds directly to technology?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting and maybe a little unsettling for some people. The potential applications for BCIs go way beyond medical uses. Researchers are looking into things like downloading knowledge directly to the brain, sharing emotions, even connecting multiple minds into a network.
A network of minds?
Yeah.
What would that even be like? Would we lose our sense of individuality?
That's one of the big philosophical questions we're grappling with. There's a term for that network concept, it's called neural symbiosis.
Neural symbiosis.
Yeah, it's the idea that multiple brains could work together as one, sharing information and processing power.
So like a group chat in your head.
Yeah, basically, but with much higher stakes, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
It's fascinating, but also concerning when you think about things like privacy and
Right.
control.
Yeah.
And even like the nature of consciousness.
Okay, so we've got cyborgs mind melding. What else is on the horizon? Don't tell me they figured out teleportation.
Not teleportation yet, but the progress in nanotechnology is pretty mind-blowing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, think about microscopic robots called nanites, circulating in your bloodstream, repairing damage at a cellular level.
Hold on, so instead of going to the doctor when you're sick, these little robots will just fix you from the inside out.
That's the idea. They could deliver drugs with pinpoint precision, attack cancer cells before they form tumors, even repair damaged DNA to slow down aging.
So we could all live to be 150. Okay, now I'm definitely getting on board with this nanite thing, but seriously, what would that mean for healthcare?
It would be a total paradigm shift.
Right.
Instead of treating illnesses after they develop, we'd be preventing them altogether.
Wow, preventative healthcare on a whole new level.
Exactly. And it's not just about physical health. Nanites could be used to enhance cognitive function, boost our immune systems, even alter our moods.
So it's like having a personalized team of microscopic mechanics and doctors working inside you 24/7.
Pretty much.
It's a bit freaky when you think about it.
It is.
But the potential benefits are huge. And it seems like all of this technology is pointing in the same direction. A future where humans and AI are becoming more and more integrated.
You're absolutely right. It's not just about tools anymore. It's about a symbiotic relationship with AI,
Hmm.
where it's not just something we use, but something that becomes part of us.
Like having an AI assistant that's not just on your phone,
Yeah,
but actually integrated into your brain.
exactly.
Right.
Imagine having constant access to information, enhanced cognitive abilities, even emotional support from an AI that understands you better than you understand yourself.
That sounds amazing, but also kind of scary. What happens to our sense of self, our individuality, in a world where we're constantly connected to AI?
That's one of the big questions we need to be asking. And it's not just philosophical, it has practical implications too.
Yeah.
Who controls this technology? Who has access to it? What are the ethical considerations?
Right, there's so many questions. It's a lot to unpack, and we're just getting started. I'm already feeling like I need an AI assistant just to process all this information. But before we get too overwhelmed, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Some people believe that all this tech, from cybernetics to nanites, is actually leading us toward a new era of human evolution. They call it post-humanism.
Uh-huh.
What do you think about that? Are we on the verge of becoming something entirely different, something beyond human?
It's a really fascinating question and one that doesn't have a simple answer. The concept of posthumanism is really complex. It suggests that we're not just talking about enhancing human capabilities, but actually transcending our limitations, evolving into something new.
So instead of just humans with cool gadgets, we'd be something else entirely.
Potentially. Think about it this way. If we can enhance our intelligence, our lifespan, our physical abilities, even our emotions, are we still fundamentally human? Or have we become something else?
That's a pretty mind-blowing thought. I don't know if I'm ready to give up my humanity just yet.
And that's a valid concern. The post-humanist movement raises so many questions about what it means to be human, what values we want to preserve, and what kind of future we want to create. It's not just a technological question, it's a philosophical and ethical one as well.
So we're talking about a future where humans might become part machine, where AI could be our partner or even our successor.
Hmm.
And this is all happening now, not in some distant sci-fi future. It's a lot to wrap our heads around.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, it's a conversation we need to be having.
Absolutely. These aren't just abstract ideas. They have real-world implications for all of us.
Right.
And the choices we make today are going to shape the future of humanity.
Okay, well, let's dive into some of those choices then. One of the most pressing concerns with all of this technology is the potential for misuse.
Right.
It's like they say, with great power comes great responsibility. And when you're talking about technologies that can fundamentally alter human beings, the stakes are incredibly high.
Exactly. So let's start with the issue of access. Who will have access to these enhancements? Will they be available to everyone or only to the wealthy and privileged?
Imagine a world where the rich can buy their way to superhuman abilities, while the rest of us are left behind. That's a recipe for social unrest and inequality on a scale we've never seen before.
It's a legitimate concern. We need to ensure that these technologies are developed and distributed in a way that benefits all of humanity, not just a select few. And it's not just about access either. We also need to think about control.
Control.
Yeah, like who gets to decide what enhancements are allowed and how they can be used.
So will individuals have autonomy over their own bodies and minds? Or will governments and corporations dictate how these technologies are used?
That's the big question, and one that's going to become increasingly important as these technologies advance.
It's a little bit scary, honestly.
It is. Another area of concern is the potential for these technologies to be used for malicious purposes.
Like what?
Well, imagine cybernetic enhancements being used to create super soldiers, or AI being used to manipulate people's thoughts and emotions.
That sounds like something out of a dystopian sci-fi film.
I know. But it's a possibility we need to consider. We've already seen how technology can be used for both good and bad.
Yeah, like social media.
Exactly. Social media can connect people and spread information, but it can also be used to spread misinformation, incite violence, and manipulate public opinion.
And as these technologies become more powerful, the potential for harm increases exponentially.
Right. Which is why it's so important to have these conversations now, while these technologies are still being developed.
Absolutely. We need to be thinking about the ethical implications, the potential for misuse, the safeguards we need to put in place to make sure these technologies are used for good.
I agree.
not for harm.
And it's not just about putting safeguards in place. It's about fostering a culture of responsibility where we recognize that these technologies are powerful tools and they need to be used with care and consideration for their impact on individuals and on society as a whole.
It's a lot to think about.
Mhm.
But one thing is for sure, ignoring the issue isn't an option. This technology is coming, whether we're ready for it or not.
And that's why it's so important to have these conversations, to educate ourselves and to engage in the public discourse. The future of humanity is at stake, and we all have a role to play in shaping it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating tension, isn't it?
Okay.
Between embracing the potential of all this tech and making sure we don't misuse it. Finding that balance is going to be key.
Definitely. It's like walking a tightrope. Progress on one side and caution on the other. We got to be bold, but we also got to be mindful.
Exactly. And one of the most important parts of that balancing act is individual autonomy. As we integrate more tech into our bodies and minds, how do we make sure people still have control over their choices?
It's a question of freedom, right? Do we become slaves to the technology? Or do we remain masters of our own destiny? That's a great way to put it. Imagine a future where employers require certain cybernetic enhancements as a condition for a job, or where social pressure makes you feel like you need the latest brain-computer interface just to be successful or attractive.
Whoa, it's like
Yeah.
a whole new kind of social hierarchy.
Hmm.
The level of your augmentation determines your place in society.
And that brings up a ton of ethical dilemmas.
Yeah, like what?
Do we even have the right to modify our bodies and minds however we want? What are the limits of self-enhancement? And who gets to decide those limits?
These are questions we need to figure out as a society. And there are no easy answers.
It's uncharted territory. We have to
Right.
be excited about it, but also cautious. And it's not just about the ethical implications for individuals. There are also societal consequences to think about.
Right.
As we embrace these technologies, are we creating a more equitable society? Or are we just making existing inequalities worse?
That's a huge question. We've already seen how technology can create divides, like the digital divide, for example.
Exactly. And with these new technologies, the stakes are even higher. Imagine a future where the wealthy can afford to enhance their intelligence, their lifespan, their physical abilities, while the rest of us struggle to keep up.
It sounds terrifying, honestly.
Yeah.
Like a dystopian future where the gap between the haves and have-nots is just massive.
It's a real concern. We need to be thoughtful about how we develop and distribute these technologies. They need to be accessible to everyone, no matter their income or social status. And we need to be very aware of how these technologies could create new forms of discrimination.
It's a lot to consider. It seems like one of the biggest challenges will be adapting our laws
Yeah.
to keep up with all of this.
Oh, absolutely. Our current legal systems were not designed to deal with cybernetic enhancements and AI integration. It's like they weren't made for a world where the line between human and machine is blurred.
Right. How do you even begin to write laws for a world where people have computer chips in their brains, or where robots are making life or death decisions?
It's a huge task. We have to rethink our concepts of liability, responsibility, even personhood. For example, who's responsible if a self-driving car causes an accident?
Is it the owner of the car? The company that made the software? Or is
Well,
it the AI itself?
those are the kinds of questions our legal systems are going to have to figure out, and we need to start thinking about these things now, before it's too late.
It's like trying to change the tires on a car while it's still moving.
Exactly. We can't wait until these technologies are everywhere and then try to catch up. We need to be proactive. We need to develop the legal frameworks to govern these technologies. And it's not just laws. It's ethical guidelines, industry standards, international agreements.
Right. It's a global issue. These technologies don't stop at borders.
Absolutely. We need to work together as a global community to make sure these technologies are developed and used to benefit all of humanity. And let's not forget about the psychological impact of all of this.
Okay.
Integrating tech into our bodies and minds could change how we see ourselves, how we relate to others, and even our place in the world.
It's not just the physical changes. It's how they change our sense of self, our identity, what it means to be human.
Exactly. Imagine enhancing your memory so you can recall every experience perfectly, or boosting your intelligence so you can solve any problem effortlessly.
That sounds amazing on the one hand. Who wouldn't want a perfect memory or superhuman intelligence? But then you start to wonder what happens to our flaws, our imperfections, our vulnerabilities.
Do those things define us? Do we lose something essential by eliminating them?
And what about our relationships? How does all this change love, friendship, family?
If we can enhance our empathy, does that make our relationships more authentic? Or does it somehow make them less real?
It's fascinating to think about. And these questions go beyond just individual relationships. They extend to our relationship with society as a whole. So how do we navigate all of this?
Yeah.
How do we embrace the potential while protecting our humanity?
There are no easy answers, but we need to have open and honest conversations about these issues.
We need to bring these topics out into the open.
We need to talk about the ethics, the social consequences, the psychological impact, the legal challenges. And everyone needs to be involved in these conversations, not just the scientists and policymakers.
Right, it affects all of us.
The future of humanity isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create together.
And it starts with asking the right questions,
Yes.
challenging assumptions,
Yeah.
and having the courage to imagine a future that is both technologically advanced and ethically sound.
And as we're thinking about all of this, it's important to remember that the human story is still being written. It's a story of resilience, adaptation, and the power of the human spirit.
And even with all these incredible technological advances, the basic questions about what it means to be human will still be there. To love, to connect, to create, to find meaning.
But those questions are going to take on new meanings as we integrate technology more deeply into our lives.
Like, what does it mean to love when we can enhance our empathy? What does it mean to connect when our minds can be linked together? What does it mean to create when AI can make art, music, and literature just as well as we can?
It's a whole new world of possibilities, and we're creating it right now with every choice we make.
So let's choose wisely. Let's be aware of the risks, but also embrace the potential.
Let's work together to create a future where technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
With all that said, let's dive into a specific example of how these technologies are coming together and changing the world as we know it. Human-AI symbiosis. We've talked about augmenting our bodies and minds, but what happens when we take it a step further and actually merge with AI?
That's an idea that's been in science fiction forever, but now it's moving from fantasy to reality. Researchers are figuring out how to integrate AI into our consciousness to create a hybrid intelligence that combines the best of both worlds.
So like a superpowered sidekick for your brain.
Exactly. And the potential benefits are enormous. Imagine instant access to all of human knowledge, processing information at lightning speed, enhanced cognitive abilities to solve any problem.
That sounds incredible, but what would it actually be like?
Well, let's start with augmented cognition. Instead of using our phones and computers to access information, imagine an AI in your mind giving you knowledge and insights directly.
So you could Google something just by thinking about it.
Pretty much. You could access information from the internet databases libraries all instantly. And it's not just about finding information. An AI could help you process that information better too.
So it's like a super search engine and a personal tutor all in one.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just knowledge. An AI could make you a better decision maker. It could give you real-time data analysis, risk assessment, predictive modeling.
So instead of going with your gut or making decisions with incomplete information, you'd have an AI helping you weigh your options, see the consequences, and make informed choices.
Exactly. And don't forget about emotional support. An AI could monitor your emotions, help you calm down when you're stressed, even offer personalized strategies for managing your mental health.
It's like a built-in therapist who knows you better than you know yourself.
And these advancements could also change how we think about creativity and collaboration. An AI could help you generate ideas, see things from different perspectives, and connect with others in more meaningful ways.
Because like we're talking about a fundamental shift in human capabilities.
We are. But it's important to remember that this technology is still very new.
Right, it's not like we'll all have AI chips in our brains tomorrow.
No, but the research is moving fast. And it's only a matter of time before these technologies become more available. And when they do, we're going to face some serious ethical challenges.
Like what?
One of the biggest concerns is autonomy. How do we make sure people are still in control of their thoughts and actions when they have an AI integrated into their consciousness?
Right, we don't want people to become puppets controlled by AI.
Exactly. We need to have clear boundaries between what humans control and how much influence the AI has. People need to be able to make their own choices, think for themselves, shape their own destinies.
So it's about finding that balance again, using the power of AI without giving up our human autonomy.
Precisely. And finding that balance will require careful thought, ethical guidelines, and open discussions. As these technologies develop,
We also need to think about privacy. If an AI can access our thoughts and emotions, how do we protect that information from being misused?
that's a critical question. We need strong privacy protections and ethical guidelines, so people have control over their data and can't be exploited. And we have to think about inequality, too. If
Hmm.
only rich people can afford AI augmentation, we could end up with a society that's even more divided.
We need to make sure everyone has access to these technologies.
Absolutely. So we can all benefit from the progress they bring.
It's about creating a future where technology empowers everyone.
And finally, we need to be careful about addiction.
Addiction to AI.
Yes, if we become too reliant on our AI partners, we might lose the ability to think for ourselves, solve problems on our own, even have meaningful relationships without technology getting in the way.
That's a good point. We've already seen how addictive things like smartphones and social media can be.
Exactly. We need to be aware that AI could be just as addictive. And we need strategies for using these technologies in a healthy way.
So we can stay independent and keep the things that make us human.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance, but it's one we have to strive for. If we want a future where technology makes us better, not worse.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to think about all this. AI being so integrated into our lives that it's basically a part of us. But like you said, we're not there yet. So while researchers are busy building our AI sidekicks, what can we be doing right now to prepare for this future that's coming at us so fast?
That's a great question, and it's important to start preparing now. One of the best things we can do is cultivate what's called hybrid thinking. It's the ability to think critically and creatively alongside AI.
So we should see AI as something that works with human thought, not something that replaces it.
Exactly. We need to learn how to work with AI effectively, understand its strengths and weaknesses, and use its capabilities to make our own thinking better. It's almost like learning a new language, the language of AI. Once you understand it, you can communicate with it, collaborate with it, even challenge it.
Makes sense. So we need to become fluent in AI. But isn't there a risk that we'll become too reliant on it? If we're always using AI to solve problems and make decisions, will we forget how to do those things ourselves?
That's a valid point. It's like using a calculator all the time. You might forget how to do basic math in your head. But the key is balance. We should use AI as a tool to enhance our abilities, not to replace them completely.
So we need to stay sharp, even as AI gets smarter. How do we do that?
There are a few things we can focus on. One is to keep developing our critical thinking skills. That means questioning assumptions, evaluating evidence, being able to tell fact from fiction, especially now with so much information and misinformation out there.
Right, because even AI can be tricked or biased.
Exactly. We can't just blindly believe everything AI tells us. We have to think critically about the information it gives us. Another important skill is creativity.
Creativity. How does that relate to AI?
As AI gets better at doing routine tasks, the jobs that require creativity, ingenuity, and original thinking will become even more important. Those are the skills that AI will have trouble replicating, at least for now.
So we need to be the ones coming up with the big ideas, the innovative solutions, the things AI can't even think of.
Exactly. And creativity isn't just about inventing things or making art. It's about finding new ways to solve problems, adapt to change, and navigate a world that's constantly in flux.
So to prepare for this future, we need to be tech-savvy and creative. But we also need to think about the ethical side of things. We've talked about misuse and inequality. What else should we be considering?
One area that doesn't get enough attention is the environmental impact of these technologies. AI systems use a lot of energy and resources to build and run. We need to think about the consequences for the planet.
Right, we don't want to solve one problem and create a new one.
We have to develop AI in a sustainable way so it doesn't harm the environment. Another thing to consider is the impact on democracy and government.
How so?
Well, as AI becomes more powerful, it could be used to influence elections, manipulate public opinion, even control people. We need to be aware of these risks and put safeguards in place to protect our democratic systems.
It sounds like getting ready for this future isn't just about learning new skills. It's about addressing all sorts of ethical, social, and political challenges.
It is, and everyone needs to be part of the conversation, not just the experts and politicians.
Right.
We all have a role to play in shaping the future.
So what can we do as individuals to make a difference?
Stay informed. Read articles. Listen to podcasts like this one. Go to talks. Whatever you can do to learn about the latest developments in AI and human augmentation.
Knowledge is power.
It is. And once you're informed, share what you know with others. Talk to your friends and family about these things. Participate in online discussions. Write to your elected officials.
Make your voice heard.
Exactly. The more people who are talking about these issues, the better chance we have of creating a future that benefits everyone.
So we can't just sit back and watch these changes happen. We have to be active participants in shaping them.
The future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create.
And if we work together, we can create a future that is both technologically advanced and human-centered.
A future where technology helps us live better lives, achieve our potential, and build a fairer world.
And that's a future worth fighting for. This has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much, but I also feel like we've only scratched the surface.
It's a huge and complex topic,
Ah,
and we've just started exploring it. Hopefully, this conversation has given you some new ideas and important questions to think about and inspired you to keep learning.
definitely, and I'm sure our listeners are feeling the same way. So before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the future of humanity, be sure to like and subscribe to the show. We'll be back soon with another episode exploring the cutting edge of technology and its impact on the world.
Until then, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep exploring a